This is Floss Weekly, episode 791, recorded July 2nd. Better Bash Scripting with Amber. Hey, this week Dan Lynch joins me, and we talk with Paweł Karaś about Amber. It's a new programming language that's designed to make Bash just a little easier to use. You don't want to miss it, so stay tuned. Hey folks, it's time for Floss Weekly. That's a show about free, Libre, and open source software. I'm your host, Jonathan Bennett, and we've got something really fun to talk about today. But first off, we have a co-host, of course. I am not running the show solo today, and it is Dan the Man, Method Dan, the Linux outlaw. Welcome, sir.
Hey, thank you. Good to be here. Always good to be here.
Yeah, it's always good to have you. A lot of fun getting to co-host and do the show with Dan. And this show is kind of right up your alley as one of the other Linux guys, because we are talking about Amber, which is sort of a replacement for Bash scripting. Not really a replacement. Maybe they should have called it Bash plus or something like that. Have you gotten some time to play around with it?
Only today. Yeah, I had a look today. We were talking pre-show there about my confusion when I first looked it up with another project, which was completely my fault. I thought we might be talking about molecular biology, so I'm quite pleased that we're not, because my molecular biology is just not great. It's not quite up to scratch. But Amber's a really interesting project, as you said. I'm not sure I'd call it a replacement for Bash so much as an extension to Bash, or I don't know. We'll have to ask what the kind of correct term is. Yeah,
so it reminds me a lot of, and I can't remember the name of it, but there's another language that is a way to do a little bit nicer CSS, and then you compile it down into actual CSS, and I can't remember what they call that. But it's the same idea. So what Amber, from my understanding, what Amber does is you write your Bash script in this kind of a little bit more structured, a little bit nicer scripting language, and then you tell it to compile, and it will spit out Bash code. Or you can actually run Amber scripts directly with the Amber executable. And so there's just a couple of different ways to go about it. And I've actually got a feature request already in the Amber GitHub, and that is, boy, it'd be really nice if you could do this with a shebang. And currently you can't, because when the Amber program runs and tries to interpret the script, it sees that first line, the hashtag exclamation mark, if you will, and it goes, this is not valid Amber, because it doesn't see the hashtag, it doesn't see the hash as a comment. It tries to interpret it as basically if I remember correctly, it tries to see it as almost a preprocessor directive. And so it errors out. And so I opened up a feature request and said, hey, it'd be really nice if you could just run Amber scripts like you run Bash scripts. And I think that's coming. We'll get the confirmation here in just a minute. Let's not waste any more time. Let's go ahead and bring the man himself onto the show. Paweł, welcome, sir.
Welcome. Hello there.
Hey. So, first off, you said before the show that we're going to have to forgive your poor English, and as I said, your English is better than a lot of Native Americans that I know. And but where are you from, and why would we potentially have to forgive your English?
Well, so I'm from Poland, so there's the stigma that many Poles have bad pronunciation when it comes to like speaking in English. So I don't know. That's just basically, I wanted to clear that out.
Well, I've got to say, it is not a problem. We do occasionally have guests that we have to work a little bit to understand, but I don't think we're going to have that problem today. So tell us about Amber. What's the problem you're trying to solve? Like, what's the origin story for this supervillain that we call Amber?
Okay.
Superhero.
So I'll start with the moment when I found out that I need Amber. So I was building like some project that needed some automated workflows, and the problem was that it actually I wanted to write some code that is like it can automate some file management and maybe do some API requests, but it never worked out very well when I was writing it within Python. I was feeling like I'm doing some kind of wrestling with Python. It's not meant to, it's not designed to do this. And so I thought, well, I want to do something like, I probably should use Bash because I'm like doing a lot of Bash calls, and I'm interacting with the std out and like, managing the data and all that stuff. So I thought, well, let's do it in let's find some language that can do that, like something else that is more advanced than Bash, maybe something that is more maybe designed for developers, not necessarily for people that are tinkering with Bash, because Bash as itself feels like it was designed solely for shell interaction. So you write commands and basically you interact with it just like that, right? Like you write command, you see an error, you take a different approach probably. You do something else. When you write a script in Bash, when you type a command that errors, inside of that script, it goes to the next command, and that's a bummer, because I would assume Bash would stop when it fails, and it does not. So, so that's one problem that I had with it. I didn't want to sit around and debug my Bash script, as it was not very necessary to spend that much time on it, because like my project requires much more other work. So I just thought, well, there must be some kind of a language that does that. And I found out that there is none. That I have to. I thought I'm going to create such language, and yeah, I spent, just to solve one problem that could, I don't know, maybe save me like 15 minutes. I sat down and coded this language for 2 years. Yeah.
Excellent.
But it wasn't like 2 whole years of development. It was like more like when I had free time, because I used to be a student as well. I graduated some time ago. So
congratulations.
Yeah.
Computer science student?
Yeah, computer science student. It was like I graduated with a bachelor's engineering degree. It was a week ago. So,
wow.
Very cool. Yeah.
Okay. So one interesting thing is that Amber was also a thesis for my degree. So yeah,
neat. So the Amber language, is it written in Bash? Have you gotten to the point to where it's written in Amber?
No. I don't think we're going to do that. It will be way too slow and way too hard to implement this, since Bash has many limitations that it's really hard to implement this same thing.
Well, to be fair, I don't think Bash is written in Bash either.
Yeah, it's true.
So what language is under the hood? What did you go with?
I picked up Rust because I dabbled with C++, but I ended up with dealing with segmentation faults, and I thought, well, it's not for me. I'm just going to use Rust. Yeah,
I feel that. I understand that. So you can, let's see. So we can compile Amber to Bash code. Like, that sounds fairly complicated. How does that even work?
Well, when you run Amber compiler, it reads to the standard input, or maybe you provide a path. It reads basically the Amber code, and it tries to parse it and creates an AST. AST, it's abstract syntax tree, and it like uses a different modules that that are trying to detect if the syntax that it's trying to parse is actually this syntax that it's trying to parse. If not, then it's like letting the compiler to go to pick another module, and works like that, and it creates this tree that is then that the translator module is trying to basically iterate through all the nodes and translate it to the bash. So this is how it works. It's pretty simple, I think. It has only two phases, so it's basically parsing and translating. It's I think it's enough for that for this reason.
Yeah, the bash code that it spits out is that I would almost expect that it would be not particularly pretty bash code. Like it's got to be a little extra verbose to be able to get all of to match the features that you've put into Amber, right?
Yeah, that's true. So basically, Bash does not support importing separate modules. I mean, it does via sourcing files, but I wanted to, I don't know, I just wanted to prepare myself for maybe, because like we could have different files that have the same variable names or the same functions that are being exported. And since we don't know if there's going to be a clash, because you can import the same function from two different files that have the same name with as keyword, which changes the name of the function. So you can import foo function from the both files, but you can change the name and when you import the function and the source code to A or B, right? And you have two different functions that do different things. They're from two different files, but they have to exist in the same space, right? They cannot override each other.
Namespace problems, yes.
Oh yeah, exactly. That's the main reason why you might see the weird numbers in the resulting bash file. However, I think that we can improve this. We can, for instance, name the add the numbers only when there's some kind of clash. So this we'll basically preserve everything that it is, to make it human readable. And then we'll try to find out where the clash could potentially be, and then add some kind of numberings or I don't know, maybe append a path to the file that this function was used in, or whatever.
Yeah, and so with Amber, you can compile it down to bash scripts and run them that way. Can you run Amber code directly?
Yes, it actually compiles to bash, and it runs it invokes a bash, and it runs it that way. So there is no interpreter.
Okay, got it.
If we, I was thinking about making one, but I thought that not for now. At least maybe in the future. For now, it seems like an overkill. Yeah.
So I was going to go down this rabbit hole of asking a question about does the what the Amber interpreter, assuming that there was one, what it does with the code, is it exactly the same as what compiling it to bash and then running it through bash would do with the code? And then you have this you probably would need this big test mechanism to run through a bunch of edge cases and make sure that your interpreter is going to do the same thing that your compiler does. And languages have taken that route. It's just, it can be a lot.
Yeah, that's true. I took the easy way, so
I think there's something to be said sometimes for the easy way.
Yeah.
You started this originally to solve a problem. Are you actually using it? You make use of Amber yourself to maybe even in your day job to fix things?
Well, yes, I at my at work I have this kind of a script that is turning up my IDE, that is opening up my browser, that is also setting up, because I'm a web developer, and it boots everything up and also creates some aliases for different commands, for Git commands and all that stuff. So I use it for that, and also we have written an installer installer for Ember in Ember. So
cool.
it's pretty interesting to see that. We didn't like write the compiler itself in Ember, but we have written an installer in Ember. So I think that's an equivalent of writing compiler in the same language.
Yeah, we think so.
Yeah, that sounds excellent. I was interested in. Obviously, you're targeting Bash, which makes a lot of sense. Is there any plans to look at any other shells like Fish or any of these other fantastic ones that people are into, or are you focused on Bash?
Well, for now, we actually want to, because Bash is the most popular option. It's pre-installed in many distros. And I think that targeting Bash is a good idea. However, some people may not want to use Bash. And for that reason, for the maximum portability and we want to also probably in the future support SH itself, so that you can run the script anywhere. And most of the shells that are like custom shells, I think they support SH out of the box. So we can also so we can basically compile the same script to, instead of Bash, to just compile to SH, and it should be good. The SH also lacks many features that Bash provides, such as arrays and associative arrays and many other things. And that would be a pretty tough thing to come around. I mean, I think that developers, either we should figure out something to work this around, or we're just going to hand it over to developers and say, oh, you're using array. Well, it's, if you're compiling to SH, we're unable to translate that. So we'll have to figure it out. Maybe some ideas will arise, but yeah, we'll see, to be honest.
Makes sense. Now, I noticed you said the word "we" there, as we'll have to work it out. Is it other people working on the tool with you, or do you have a team?
Yeah. There are a couple of maintainers that are also on board with us. So before the whole, when Ember got popular, there was only I was working on it, and so the development of it was pretty slow because I also didn't have time every day to sit around and just at least type one line of code to keep pushing this project. Yeah. So that was very very good. That I was very blessed that so many people came around and started building pull requests, and right now there are I think 5 maintainers besides me.
Oh, wow.
So that's really good.
Yeah.
That's quite a lot of maintainers for a new project, such a new project.
Yeah,
we've seen other projects in the past that have ended up with one maintainer who's then disappeared, and then obviously that's not good. But that's awesome. So you mentioned that you have a team working on it and stuff. Do you have any idea how popular it is in the user base? How many users? I mean, not in numbers, it's hard numbers, but has it exploded in popularity for you?
When it comes to the overall installs of Ember, there are 2,500 or so, something like that. When it comes to the visits to the website, because I'm also trying to, I also track these numbers just to see what can I improve, what is most interesting for users and all that stuff. It seems that there's 40,000 so far visits to the website, which is pretty interesting. But overall, I don't know. I think that as we move on, as we add features, as we patch some bugs, people are more likely to hop on the train and start using Amber. Not sure if that's enough. I think we're going to improve it even more, and maybe at some point there will be at a stable release. Maybe some people more people will come and use it.
And what about the kind of type of users that you see? Is it mainly power users, or is it good for people who want to learn about Bash, or what's the kind of spectrum like there?
Yeah, so there's two different types of users. There are power users that are also looking for an alternative to just write some scripts that are perhaps updating their system in the background, or maybe some kind of a bot detector that a script that checks if the connection that is created with the server is a bot or not. And well, there are also some people that wanted to use it at work for managing some small environments, like some kind of Docker containers, or maybe some small environments that do not have enough maybe space and memory to install Python or any other external tool, but also they need to automate some things. And to use Bash, it's not that convenient. So they choose to use Amber and just compile the code and send it to this little environment. Yeah.
Oh, that's very cool. So you could also I'm wondering about like embedded spaces, like that's what you're talking about there, is like embedded areas possibly as well. I know Docker's not necessarily embedded, but I was thinking about like maybe people would use it for small devices, as you say, like there, and target, because you a lot of them don't necessarily have enough room for Bash. Well, they have room for Bash, but they don't necessarily have room for a lot on top of that. So how much kind of could I obviously you can generate the Bash and send it, as you said then. How difficult would it be to install Amber on a small device? Does it need a lot of resources?
Well, the thing is that you don't have to install it on a small device. You can just compile it on your computer, on your main machine, and just send it to the little device that you have, to the smaller device, and debug it and see if it works, and develop the code this way. It's a good alternative, I think.
Yeah, that makes sense. So I was interested in some of the advantages that you get from using Amber, because as we mentioned at the top of the show, Jonathan's been using it. I've not unfortunately had time to do much with it, but I will be after this. Don't worry, I'll certainly be trying it out, because I was looking at things like you've got like type safety, which is interesting. So Amber can help you with better scripting practices in some way. Is that fair?
Yeah. When I was building the language, I was thinking that, well, it would be cool if this language also supported libraries, like building libraries out of the box. So people could build some kind of like ready solutions for given problems that are also typed, so that the users of these libraries can see what the function requires, like, for example, number and text or whatever. And that would be cool, because I wanted Amber to be more of a automating solution, not necessarily a wrapper for Bash. We have to start it somewhere, so Amber is pretty limited at this point. But I think that once we progress, the whole ecosystem will start. The whole type safety will make more and more sense, and people will be able to, because right now there are only primitive types that people can use. And I think that if we, as the time goes on, Amber will gain some kind of some way to create types, many types, like for instance, for exit codes for this different maybe enums or whatever. We'll have to discuss it on GitHub probably, because it would be nice to get the feedback of the people that actually use it. So yeah, but that's the main idea behind this.
That's awesome. And what was there any languages that you looked at that you particularly took like inspiration from when you were trying to create Amber?
I was inspired by mainly ECMAScript, which is JavaScript, mainly because it's super popular and people are familiar with the syntax. I also liked the some of the Rust features. Like I like that loops in Rust. I mean, at least the infinite loop starts with the keyword loop, and it was like it makes sense. So I used that as well. And instead of string, I decided to choose a different name for string. I decided to use text because I wanted to give it a little bit of personality and its own vibe or its own flair. So yeah, so that's the reason that these are the languages that I was inspired by.
I'm curious if there's anything. So it comes to mind that you could, if somebody really wanted to, you could do something crazy like use Amber as a replacement for PHP and write out websites with it. Like there are some interesting, and I don't know that that's a good idea or that anybody would do it, but like are you sort of thinking about like this maybe having a life beyond just writing shell scripts?
Yeah, I was thinking about, because you have this GitHub workflows and GitHub the GitHub webhooks or something like that. Well, basically, it's this tool that can make an REST API and do a request to some server. And I was thinking like, well, that would be cool to create some kind of a simple HTTP server that can accept some GitHub requests that it sends and do some automations based on it. So I think that we're actually going to do some kind of a server-ish things, maybe, but that's in the future, probably distant future. We don't know yet. Maybe that will be some kind of a separate project that is not a part of the compiler itself. Yeah.
So I'm also real curious. Is everything that Amber does, and so I guess this is a two-part question, what does it do right now and what are you looking to for the future? Is everything that Amber does just Bash and the built-ins, or is there anything that like has to make a call to sed or awk or grep? And if so, or if you're ever going to do that, how do you handle the dependencies on that?
Well, that's a good question. For now, we depend on BC for handling numbers. BC is a basic calculator. It's basically a arithmetic calculator with decimal precision. But yeah, we want to. I think that we want to get off all of these dependencies. To the maximum, because just to improve the portability of Amber, and we'll probably find out some custom solutions for that. For instance, when it comes to numbers with floating points, because Bash does not support floating points, we could use some fixed precisions, some kind of like functions under the hood, just to at least emulate it in some way. But yeah, that will be a tough task to do. We'll see if it's possible to just ditch everything and and everything is going to be all right. For now, Amber does not use like a lot of dependencies, so it's not the bad. It's not going to be that hard to accomplish. Right now, there's like sed, sec, and bc as the dependencies, so it's not a lot, and I think we can cut some of these off, and it'll be good.
Again, I'm not going to tell you that this is necessarily a good idea, but something that comes to mind, you could actually write a Amber helper, for lack of a better term, and those bits that you need from sed and the bits that you need from BC could live in this little helper binary, and that actually could be really interesting in moving away from Bash into other languages. That might be a way to approach it. Is that something that's on the radar?
Yeah, that was my idea actually when I was like thinking about it.
There you go.
Yeah, but the problem is that you're actually installing some binary in the end, and that might be hard to. You would have to maintain many many targets, compilation targets.
Right.
Yeah, I heard from people that it's not the best. Like they don't like the solution for this. They would prefer to use some kind of shell scripts, shell code embedded. But we'll see. I think that if there is nothing we can do, we can always ship the binary and see how it works.
Yeah, I suppose that sort of defeats the idea that you want to just export. You want to compile to Bash code that doesn't require.
And you also have this problem that whenever you run the Amber code, it has to fetch from the internet the binary or from somewhere. Or if we embed the binary into the shell script, it becomes unreadable, which is also it's a deal breaker.
Yeah, it's a challenging problem to try to work around.
Yes.
Okay, so how does Amber handle? I'm still kind of trying to wrap my head around the way the language itself works, because in Bash, so just for instance, in Bash you can go from Bash scripting like in one line to directly to, and then here's the program I want to call with all of its arguments. How does Amber handle that? Can you just have a call off to a binary as a line by itself, or does it require a little bit more syntax than that?
Well, there's this command syntax that enables you to call anything from Bash. So whatever you write in the command expression, it's basically you write it between two dollar signs. It's like a string, but it's for Bash, for executing Bash. So you write the command here, and then it requires you to also handle the error, because in Amber there are entities that can fail and there are entities that are safe. So the failable entities, which are for instance the commands or functions that are failable, because functions can also fail, and that is also something very interesting about this. You have to also handle it somehow, and there are many ways to handle the errors. You can write the failed block, or you can write the unsafe, which basically treats this command as if it would never fail. So it's usually for for the times where developer is like, I think that it's never gonna fail, so I'm gonna just leave it like that.
It's like running cat. If cat fails, you've got bigger problems on your hands.
Oh yeah. Unless the file permissions are
okay.
set.
So there's a few cases there, but we have actually a question from the chat room. Mashed Potato wants to know: is having a good understanding of Bash recommended, or can one just jump straight into Amber? This reminds me very much of the question: do I need to learn C before I learn C++?
Well, unless you don't want to run many, I mean, it's always a good, nice to have to know some basics of Bash, or at least some SH, or how to run commands. But other than that, you don't have to know every single every quirk about Bash. You can just invoke the basic commands that you need, and for instance, assign the result from std out of your command to a variable, and just use a standard library that is also an experimental as of right now. But in the future, let's say you could use the standard library and just manipulate the data the way you want, and I think that's it's pretty powerful because the syntax is very easy to pick up, and I think it's okay to you can start with it and see if it's easy for you enough. Yeah,
so I want to ask about some odder places that people might try to run Amber, or at least that immediately comes to my mind to think to run Amber. And so the first one, we mentioned it briefly earlier, and that is the idea of embedded places. So like on my router running OpenWRT or other places like that, instead of an actual bash, you may just have BusyBox. And I'm curious, do you support, is it going to work, or is it just going to fail spectacularly trying to run the exported code on someplace like a BusyBox install?
Oh, I never tested it. Not really sure.
There you go.
But my guess, if it has, I'm not really sure about that. But I think if it has Bash installed, it should work. I mean, unless you do something. I don't know. You mutate some. You I don't know. You try to create something. You try to do something that is illegal or.
So the crazy thing about that is that BusyBox is an all-in-one binary for embedded devices, embedded Linux, and it behaves differently depending upon what command you call it with. But they're all symlinked down to BusyBox, and one of the things that symlink to BusyBox is Bash itself. So you tell your system to run this with Bash, and it's actually BusyBox that picks it up and runs it. And on an embedded device like that, you're probably not going to have sed or grep. Maybe, I mean, you can compile them, but we're talking about targets that have like 4 megabytes of flash. It's a little minimal.
In the future, ideally, I think that you would compile Amber to SH, and you would just run it with the BusyBox.
Yeah, and you kind of imagine that anything that SH supports, hopefully, BusyBox is going to.
Yeah.
I guess officially have a bug in your ear that when you think about doing this, also do some testing with BusyBox.
Yeah.
Because it'd be fun. It'd be fun to run Amber scripts on OpenWRT on the router. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, what about some other even crazier places? What about the BSDs? Are we thinking about being able to run Amber on OpenBSD, FreeBSD, NetBSD?
Yeah, I've heard that some commands that we use are not supported on BSDs out of the box. So we'll probably have to double around this. But I'm not really sure if that is that hard to integrate BSDs with Amber. I think that. It's not going to be hard. We just have to we don't even have BSD version the compiler is not built for BSD as of right now. We could add the targets and then try to see if we can support it and all that stuff. For now, the only BSD that we support is macOS, which is not a BSD actually. It used to be, but yeah.
It kind of is, but it kind of isn't at the same time. Okay, so let's get crazier. What about Windows? Can we run Amber on Windows? Cygwin or PowerShell or even the old school Windows command line.
Oh gosh,
DOS.
Well,
Amber on DOS. There you go.
So yeah, I was thinking about it when I was creating it, and I thought that if I catch the two things at the same time, I'm probably gonna fail. I have to focus on one target, And I think probably we could support it. Why not? I think it would be a really good idea to support it so that people can build like libraries that are not unique to POSIX operating systems that are also working on Windows devices, which would be really cool. I think that as of right now, we don't support PowerShell and command line. We'll probably do, but in the really distant future. And we'll also have to check if it's actually viable and if that many people would rather use Amber instead of PowerShell, because PowerShell is pretty interesting. Like it's very powerful, and I see that it has this object-oriented like paradigm to it that is very compelling. And I think that Windows users would prefer using PowerShell for that exact reason. And yeah, we'll see. Maybe Microsoft adopts Bash, and we don't have to worry.
That would be lovely, but I'm not going to hold my breath for it. Where Amber on Windows would really be helpful is for those of us that are primarily Linux geeks and we have to go do something with Windows. And yes, PowerShell is powerful, but it's sort of also painful to work with if you're used to Bash or something else. And then I was also going to say, it sounds like the direction that you want to move with this is where Amber is just eventually going to have an option where you -- target, and then you say Bash or SH or BSD or Fish or PowerShell, and then alternatively, if you don't run it with a target, it's going to try to detect like what shell it's being called from and automatically spit out that flavor of shell script. And yes. I assume that's kind of the direction you want to go, and it's going to be its own set of challenges, but it's also going to be pretty neat when it gets finished.
Yeah, for now we'll start with just the SH and Bash. The SH being the most minimal, but yet more portable solution for a portable target. For Fish and Ash and ZSH and Bash, these I'm not really sure. Probably maybe because like we would have to wait and see how fast we reach the limits of Bash. And then probably we'll just say, okay, that's enough. I think this is like as good as we can go, and we'll probably support different other targets. For now, I think it's good enough to support Bash and SH, but we'll see if adding more support will actually help Amber to be more popular and useful for other people.
So you mentioned the object-oriented kind of things that PowerShell can do. Is there any plans to go in an object-oriented kind of direction with Amber at all?
I think that it's not necessarily important to go with the object-oriented paradigm with Amber. Because shell scripting is, usually when people ask for OOP, they mean something else than they actually ask for. Usually it means that they need some kind of way to structure things out. Like they want to have a proper structure of their code base so that they enclose some things in given class, and they use them as static methods or whatever. But on the other hand, I think that OOP delivers some, I'm talking about the inheritance part and all that stuff, not talking about structures and like the like objects, because like this is very common thing that I think we should support in Amber in the end, because so far we always support tables and arrays, and table is a Polish term for that. Arrays and that's basically it. So yeah, so I think that inheritance is not very important for Amber. Maybe traits or something else. We'll have to figure it out. What is the best solution for shell scripting environment? And I think that as we discuss different ideas, that we'll finally find something that suits Amber the best.
So I noticed that when I was looking at the GitHub repository, that you're licensed under the GPL v3, which is one of my, well, possibly my favorite license. I'm sure everyone wants to know that. But was there a lot of thought behind that? Did you just pick a license at random, or did you just specifically? Do you know what I mean? Because some people are just not interested in the license, and they're like, I just want to get on with writing what I'm writing, and whatever the default value is, that's fine. So is it important to you that people are sharing the code and working on it and so on, and using GPL?
Yeah, I just want Amber to be for people, not for me or whatever. I want this tool to be just that it's widely that it's easy to fork, easy to integrate with other platforms that require GPL3, and that I just want it to be the most friendly license that it can be. That is also yeah. Just wanted that.
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes total sense. We've actually got another question from the chat room from the Bennett, who says, Bash and scripting in general tends to be very iterative. Does Amber support any map/reduce style functional approaches to scripting?
Oh, that would be cool. That would be really nice to add. We haven't actually done it yet, because functions in Bash are not. I mean, you actually can treat functions like values, but with the function names, like you could create a function with a certain name and just eval it. But I think that that would be cool to create functions, to make functions actually values, and to assign it to a variable, and then like apt lambdas. And when you create a map, you could pass a function to a function that could, to a function call that could iterate through all of that data set that you have, and do something else with it. So higher ordered functions are on the list. There's actually an issue for that. And I think we'll have it. We'll introduce it eventually.
Excellent. There you go. So I hope that's answered the question, the Bennett. Back to the, I'm a license geek. I love licensing, so I'm just going to bore you with that, I'm afraid. No, I won't bore you. Final question on licensing, I promise. Could you relicense the code if you wanted to? Do you have anything like a contributor license agreement, or is that anything that you would, or does everybody retain their own copyright and all that sort of stuff?
I'm not familiar really with that.
So in terms of like the Linux kernel, for example, the developers all contributors who write code retain their own copyright. So that means that no one entity can relicense the kernel, for example, because the copyright is, you need to get agreement from, in terms of the kernel. Well, how many people? A lot of people.
Yeah, a lot
in
of
terms
people.
of the kernel.
Yeah, I'll jump in and say a couple of words.
Yeah,
so it's something that's I've seen a couple of times when a project gets down the road and they go for several different reasons. They'll go, oh, we went with GPL v3 and we should have gone with MIT. Now, sometimes it's because they want to commercialize and make money. Other times it's because we just realized that this was a bad decision. So something like a CLA, it essentially, it's when somebody writes code, they assign a copyright to whoever holds the CLA, and it says you can relicense it if you want to. And there's strong opinions on whether CLAs are a good thing or not, because, like I said, a lot of times they get involved with commercialization, and people get very unhappy about that. So I'm guessing, based on the fact that CLAs are not in your wheelhouse, that is not something that we have with Amber.
No, I mean, I don't see a compiler that is commercialized. I mean, compilers should be free and easily accessible to people. Maybe some products around Amber could be like there could be some products, right? But like that could be commercialized, but not the compiler itself, I think.
Yeah, that makes sense. I was going to ask whether you have plans to try to ever make any money with Amber, or if it's just always going to be a pet project. It sounds like there's been at least a little bit of thought gone into that.
Yeah. I mean, I was thinking about that because like it's nice to have stars in GitHub, but who
You
cares
can't eat 'em.
if you don't get money, right? I think there are some plans to maybe build some platforms that utilize Amber in some way, but there are no like. I haven't thought about any particular idea to implement as of right now. So maybe something related to Amber could come up, but I don't know. I just haven't. I'm focused on the compiler right now, and I want to make it the best it can be.
I assume if somebody came along and said, "Hey, let's give you a contract to work on Amber for a year," you might be interested in that.
We could, yeah. I think I would be interested.
So yeah, somebody would. Somebody from the project would. So what's the game plan as far as trying to get into the various Linux distros by default? I just looked on my Pop! OS machine here. I can't just apt install Amber, or if I do, I don't think it gets I don't think it gets you guys. I think it gets one of the other projects. Have you been in contact with maintainers? Are you talking about that with packagers?
Yeah, we already have a snap package for Amber. So you can go to the Snap store and Snapcraft store. I don't know how it's called exactly, but yeah, you can grab it from there. We don't have any PPA created as of right now, but I'm open to people creating some repositories, and we could. We're also thinking about creating an organization on GitHub to store everything there related to Amber. So yeah, it's the early days right now, and I think that as we move on, there are many packages will come up, and like for instance, there's already some AUR for Arch Linux users that can install the Amber Bash. It's called. I don't know. It's probably on the README on the repository.
Yeah. So. Let's see. First off, that's interesting that you're using snaps. It's actually one of the very few compelling use cases for using snaps because you can, as opposed to some of the other images, you can use it for command line stuff, and it just works. It was one of the things that they kind of had in mind with snaps. So that's fascinating.
We'll also probably create some tabs for macOS users. Because Homebrew is the main driver. Yeah.
Yeah, I would imagine it'll be reasonably easy to get into Brew. They seem to be pretty open to new packages and people submitting. And it's fairly easy to just download the binary and install it manually, isn't it?
Oh yeah, sure. You can basically go to the repository, go to the releases, and there are plenty of archives that you can download and use the binary. It has no dependencies, so you can just download it and use it.
Yeah, that's neat. Let's see. So if somebody wants to come and get started, what's the best place to come and find more information about Amber, the project?
Probably the documentation. We have the docs.amber/lang, amber-lang.com, which is the documentation website, which is very it's the place where you want to learn Amber. We're working on it to make it the most informative and educational. But other than that, you could join our Discord server where we're talking about, there's a channel Code Help where you can get some help from other people that already code in Amber. And I don't know, maybe GitHub discussions. That's also someplace that you might be interested in. Yeah. I think that these three sources are the best for that.
Now, okay, there's something that we probably should have mentioned or talked about earlier, and that is you've got a warning in a couple of different places that Amber is not ready for production yet, right? What's the story on that? And like, at what point are you gonna feel good enough about Amber? Like it's ready. It's not necessarily done, but it's done enough that you can take that warning away. What's the timeline look like?
I think that when we stop introducing breaking changes, that for sure, because for now we have a couple of ideas that would break the sorry for that would introduce breaking chains for existing source code written in Amber. I think that mainly that, and also if we improve the code coverage, because for now we have some tests, we have many tests, but it's not enough for a compiler. I think that we need to cover as much as possible scenarios. Yeah,
makes sense. All right, is there anything that we didn't ask you about that you wanted to cover? I know it's a hard
that's
question.
That's a good question. Yeah, well, maybe the end goal of Amber is I could make an analogy that Amber is supposed to be something like Apple shortcuts for Mac OS. In a way, not necessarily like one-to-one tool, but in a certain way. Like, for instance, it's not going to be like this nice user interface application or tool or whatever. It's going to be just the like. Oh my goodness! I'm just like trying to
connect the analogy here.
Yeah, exactly. I think that it's the idea of it, but it's not the implementation. It's meant to be easy for developers, and it's meant to be for developers and power users, but it's not meant to be like closed and very limited. So it's open for people to extend it with libraries and maybe applications that interact with other applications, and this way people can automate many things, but not necessarily so it's like so that's something very very interesting. Maybe that's the idea that I had in mind. That's what I want to say.
Makes sense. So you've got the Discord where people come and ask for help and show you some code snippets, and on GitHub as well. What's the strangest thing that somebody's doing with Amber that you've seen that you're aware of?
Okay, so one of my friends has written a tic-tac-toe in Amber, which is pretty interesting. It was a fun little game. Okay. Some other person has written a script that searches the Bible. When you like write a citation from the Bible, it just searches from the Bible and it spits out where it was, exactly which paragraph and which.
Very cool. All right. No, it's a lot of fun. So I've got two final questions that I've got to ask you, and that is, what is your favorite text editor and scripting language?
Oh, okay. Can I say Amber? Or
you're allowed to.
Of course you can. Yeah.
If it's true, and so that may not be the case yet. I don't know. I could see this where it's a passion project, but it's not quite your favorite yet.
It depends on if other languages like TypeScript or if these are actually scripting languages, because I use them not as type of scripting as scripting languages, more like I use them more as of like a tool to build applications. So I would say Ember, I don't like Python that much. I know that's a controversial thing to say.
That is
but I'm
controversial, yeah.
not a fan of white space indentations. And
Sure.
Right, okay.
yeah, when it comes to text editor, right? Text editor. I use Zed. I love it. It's really fast and it's not that, I don't know. I used to use Visual Studio Code, but I found it's very like I don't know how to describe it. It's like not commercialized, but it's more like corporate,
Yeah.
something like that. And I didn't like this vibe, and I just wanted to change it to something else. Was looking for an alternative for years, and finally someone created Zed. It's on macOS only, so it's kind of a bummer, but yeah,
that's true.
It's a good tool. Yeah. And I used to use, when I don't have the access to Zed, I usually use Vim. So yeah,
I didn't recognize Zed at first, but now going to their website, it's like, oh, that's the one made by the guys that made Atom. That's right.
Yeah,
I've
that's
looked at this
exactly.
before. Yeah.
I was a fan of Atom. I it was too slow, so I switched to VS Code when I heard that they created Zed. I was like, oh, let's give it a shot. Let's jump there.
Yep. Makes sense. All right. Well, thank you so much, sir, for being here, and really, really enjoyed it. And once you hit your 1.0, we'll have to have you back and chat about what changed between now and then. Looking forward to it.
That's great. Thank you so much, sir.
All right. What do you think?
I think it was great. Yeah, really, really interesting project. I've actually, I was going to install it while we were talking, but then I thought maybe not a great idea on the machine that I'm actually talking to you on as we're doing the show, but I will be doing it right after. But it's literally like a curl command to install it. And
yes.
the shell
It's real
script,
easy.
So. Yeah, so that's really easy. So I'll give that a go. Yeah, I'm really interested. I love doing stuff with Bash, but Bash has a lot of problems and it's old and it was. I actually looked up earlier. It's like 1980 something. It originally came out, and yeah, it has its issues, but I think being able to use something like Amber to compile into Bash, I could see real benefits for me doing that. So yeah, I'm definitely going to be playing around with Amber in future, I think.
Yeah. So one of the fun things about it is I believe you said it's written in Rust. So
That's right. Yeah.
it'll run anywhere where you can run Rust and Bash, which is like every Linux out there, just about. So I mean, you could put it on. You've got Termux on your Android phone. You could make it run there. If you have, we talked about a router. If you've got a router that's got enough flash room on it, you could totally run it and make it work there. If you had a full Bash to make it work, and that's really interesting. So there's potential to put it on RISC-V devices, on ARM devices, all kinds of stuff. Yeah, sometimes, as cool as Bash is, sometimes Bash scripting is it's just not very nice. Every once in a while.
No,
not to throw shade on it, but sometimes it's not my favorite. Yeah, I enjoy Ember a lot. I think it's going to be very interesting to watch the project though, because they've got some problems to try to move in the direction they want to move. There are some challenges, and it's going to be really interesting to keep an eye on it and see how do they solve those challenges? What direction do they take with it in the future?
Yeah, and I think it's impressive that they've already got 5 maintainers. That's amazing.
That is, well, and I'll tell you why. I can tell you exactly why that is. Two reasons. One, the idea of Amber is it's sticky, right? Like you hear it and you immediately go, oh, that's interesting, and it kind of sticks with you, right? And the other thing is the people that use it are programmers, just by the very nature of it. And those two things together is going to attract a lot of people. Well, people like you and me that are interested in it. And if there's something about it that bugs us enough, we can go fire up, our favorite editor, grab the code and go fix it. And that is how you end up with a project that has 5 maintainers, is because it's kind of this this perfect meeting ground of the right project that's going to attract the right kind of people to be your maintainers.
That's very true. Yeah, that is true. Yeah. When you said amber is sticky, I was thinking of amber, as in amber itself is sticky. So you've really nailed the analogy there.
Yeah, that's great. They should work that into their marketing somehow. Oh, all right. Dan, you have anything you want to plug?
This weekend it's the Liverpool Make Fest, which I've talked about in the past. If you're in the UK, if you're near to Liverpool, you want to come along. It's completely free. It's on all day from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. this Saturday, the 6th of July. If you go to liverpoolmakefest.org, you can find out stuff on there, and you can make yourself come along, make robots, do drawings, fly balloons is a thing we're going to do.
Oh, cool.
All kinds of stuff. So yeah, go and check that out.
Yeah, very cool. It's a little bit too far of a drive for me. I don't think I'll make it this year. But maybe
excuses.
I know. Maybe
Mind you, the amount of times I've been to Oklahoma is it's not high, so I can't really complain.
True. All right. Well, thank you, sir, for being here. I appreciate it a lot.
No problem.
All right. And then as far as things I want to plug, of course, we appreciate Hackaday giving us a home for Floss Weekly, and you can find my work there, specifically the security column. It goes live on Friday mornings, and that is a lot of fun. Make sure and check that out. There is the YouTube channel for Floss Weekly. If you want to see the video, you can just find us. It is Floss Weekly over on YouTube. If you search for that, you might also find the Untitled Linux Show, which is my show over at Twit, which is more Linux and less open source, although, boy, there's a lot of overflow between those two. So if you like this, you'll probably like that too, and give that a check out too. We sure appreciate everybody being here, those that caught us live, those that get us on the download, and we will see you next week on Floss Weekly.